Everyone, it's a beautiful day out there. You can hear the few of the birds. There were geese out there earlier, but they took off. And you can see Rapture Kitty over here. He's easier to deal with if I don't put him on camera. It goes to his head, you know. I got to see a first draft or a director's cut of the first third of our film that we're getting ready to release. It's been moved out to Thanksgiving to make sure we had enough to finish off all the little pieces that were added. Come on, stop bumping that. But it looks pretty good. A couple of minor things, and those will be fixed, and it'll be good to release. It's all I can do right now is independent films. I don't want to get in the union to do anything else. I don't like Hollywood, and I've stayed on the fringes of it. The things that I have done were pre-wokeness, but I won't work on the stuff anymore because they've basically shown that that's really all they want to do. So be careful watching that. But I mean, I've been in the movie A Case for Christ. Lee Strobel, who wrote it, it's about him and his conversion to Christianity. It's a good story if you haven't. Case for Christ, there's a book out for it first. It came out first. Then they made a movie out of it. So I would check it out if I could. And I've done other things. I did Hidden Figures, which is a fantastic story about blacks breaking out of the control that the early 60s put on them. They were so good at what they did, they could not be excluded. And that's what you've got to do. Be good. Work hard. Be good. And it doesn't matter where you're at, what you're from, what your background is. And the same thing goes for Christ. It doesn't matter what your background is. When you come to Him and you accept Him as your Lord and Savior, you have a new start. That's why it's called being born again. Your past, whatever it is, you may choose to remember it or to throw it away. It's up to you. Anything that's in there that's not good will never be brought up again by Jesus. If it's being brought up, it's being brought up by Satan, and you can just tell him to get behind you and leave you alone. And he has to. And it's, you know, as we're looking at this stuff and we're reading this bad stuff, it's my firm belief that you cannot, should not, pray away the wrath that's to come. Instead, what you should be praying for is that if there are any, now, we're not going to be in this because we're going to be raptured, but you pray before we go that anybody that you want to see in heaven, they get special attention. Now, God doesn't pick favorites, but if you pray for something, God will give you what you ask for, if you can. Remember, it's yes, no, and maybe or not yet. He'll even give you things that aren't good for you because He wants to please. He loves us. Don't forget that. So you can pray for people to be protected during the coming catastrophes. You can pray that somebody will come to them on a regular basis and give the gospel to them to try to win them over. If they don't make it to heaven, it's because they're strong-willed and hate God. And if you don't think they're like that, then somebody will get to them. It just may be that they got to be down at the bottom of the pile, with the pile piling up higher and higher, and they can't breathe, and they finally say, okay, I've had enough. That's the only reason all this stuff's happening. The pre-wrath stuff is man's own doing to himself, getting to have what he wants. Rule over this world with Satan. He may not know Satan's involved, but he is. He's been lied to. Once he figures out the truth, there's a change. Israel will be pro-Antichrist when he shows up, because they're not accepting the first one. They'll be pro-Antichrist until he defiles the temple. And then they're going to go, oops, maybe the Christians were right. And they have the 144,000 and the 2 witnesses to do that. So as we get back into Revelation, it goes through things like 4 times. I mean, we've got 4 Gospels to look at God, so we're going to look at the Revelation 4 times. And so we're seeing some of this stuff rehashed with a little bit more detail. Right now we're going to see we're going to start in Revelation 16. So Revelation 16:1, you can read along with me. And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, "Go your ways and pour out the vials of wrath of God upon the earth." This is King James. King James uses the word vials. Other translations use bowls. A vial is very small. You just kind of pour it out. I like the bowl measure better. A big bowl that you'd have a big bowl of breakfast cereal in. That's more like what God's doing. Vials. Oh, I just pour a little bit in there. Just mix it, just a couple of drops. No. Wrath of God. This is it. This is the people that have rejected God all the way to this point. Verse 2. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast. That right there tells you we're not going to be here, because we don't have to deal with the mark of the beast. We're raptured. But the people of the world that took it because they believed in the Antichrist or in Satan or whatever, anything anti-God, they took the mark to be part of the world. They took the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. There will be an image, and the false prophet, as we just read, will animate it. Is that AI? Possibly. Could just be straight miracles. Satan has miracle power down here. Now, God can trump him every time, not referring to our current president-elect, but can trump him every time. Satan can only copy. And you look at Satan's minions around the world. China's building SpaceX over there. They're not doing well, but they're trying to copy what SpaceX is doing here. Okay, the air is turned dry. It was hot today, and I don't have my air conditioner because this is November. You shouldn't need air conditioning, but it was hot. I was going to go up to the ranger's area and talk to the ranger up there, and I take the cat with me, and the cat stays in the car. I couldn't do that in an early part of the day, 7 o'clock time frame, so I had to wait for it to stabilize a little bit, because I won't put an animal in a hot car. And I'm no more than 15 feet away, and I checked it 3 or 4 times. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to take the animal with me, park it in a hot summer day in a parking lot so I could go into the bar or go into the shopping mall and shop. Come on, people. Children have died that way. Don't do it. But this is winter, and I parked it in the shade, and it was fine. I cracked the windows, and I'm watching. And I checked it. This is what you're going to do if you're going to do something that is slightly risky. Make sure that it's not by eliminating all the possible things that can go wrong. If you can't, don't do it. Okay. That's why I say be prepared. Prep. Okay. So we're going to have different parts of the earth touched, with each one of these bowls. So for that one, poured his vial upon the earth. And the second angel poured his vial upon the sea. This is the wrath of God. He's coming down to get everybody. Remember, too, what happened in chapter 6. Who's on earth right now? Satan and his angels. And the Antichrist is still here for this. He's not trying to get Christians. Christians, if they're still around, and there will be protected. But this is to get everybody that's not. There's got to be a remnant left over to seed the millennium. Remember what it said about the 144,000? You cannot touch these if they have the mark of God on their forehead, or marked with the mark of God, however you want to mark it. See, Satan copies it. That's why we have the mark of the beast. And it became as the blood of dead men, and every living soul died in the sea. Are there people living in the sea? I don't know if they're in the sea. And fish don't have souls. But there could be people. There are submarines all over the place. Those people are not going to do well. There are boats on the sea. Many, many boats. They're not going to do well. Verse 4, and the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and the fountains and the waters, and they became blood. That's been done before to Pharaoh. And I heard the angel of the water say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which art and was and shall be, because thou hast judged thus. A righteous God is allowing these angels to do this. This is called the wrath of God, but he's not doing it. He's permitting it. For they have shed the blood of the saints and the prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy of that. It's against the law to drink blood in most places. And if we remember the merchant of Venice, the argument was, we want a pound of this man's flesh. The attorney goes, all right, I agree to it full-heartedly. You can have a pound of his flesh. And as they were getting ready to take him off, he goes, but I did not say you could have the blood. There's no way to do that. And I heard another out of the altar say, even so, Lord God Almighty, true and righteous are thy judgments. The people down here, I mean, we're not supposed to judge these people. God has. And we're not going to get in here and second guess God, are we? Okay, so we can pretty much say these guys deserve the judgment. We're just agreeing with God. In general, we don't want to ever judge anybody, but we're just agreeing with God when we say these people deserve the judgment. And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and the power was given unto him to scorch men with fire. I don't know how that's going to work. I really don't. The sun's hot, but the sun, even the greatest solar flare, doesn't reach the earth. We see the effects of it. It can knock out satellites, power. It can cost us lives eventually because of radiation, but that's not an immediate death. That doesn't burn. I don't understand this unless something just causes it to put out more heat. It is a nuclear fusion reactor, and it can put out heat. Okay, Rapture Kitty wants to say hi. And he was about ready to walk across my keyboard. So go back and look at the birds. And men were scorched with great heat and blasphemed the name of God. In the midst of all this stuff, they're still cursing God. That's why they're getting this in the first place. And it doesn't turn their hearts. They turn against God again and again. Blaspheme the name of God, which has power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. I don't want to knock my hat off, but what is it with these people? God cannot reach these people. There are some people you won't be able to reach. Try, always. But don't be discouraged if you don't reach somebody. One, they're not ready, and some will never be ready. Plant the seeds. That's the best you can do, you do that. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of beasts, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. The animal kingdom. I don't know why they're in this, But we know that demons have gone into swine. It's possible they could be some living there with them. There's a lot of demons on the earth after they're kicked out of heaven. So they gnawed their tongues in pain and blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates. So he turned the other rivers to blood. This is a very specific biblical river. And the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. Who's the kings of the east? Where did the wise men come from? From the east. Persia, Iran. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon being Satan, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. Those are our 3 leaders. Satan, of course, is the boss. For they are the spirits of devils, working miracles which go forth into the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. Behold, I have come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. And he gathered them together in a place in Hebrew called Armageddon. This is way at the end. The 7th bowl. And the 7th angel poured his vial into the air, and there came a great voice of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, "It is done." That's the best thing I've seen. Oh, we got people walking down at the point. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as not since men were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came to remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Going after the Babylon the Great. And we've read this stuff before, so this is continuing to just rehash the same stuff. This isn't happening time and time again. It just keeps rehashing. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. That's a coin. That's pretty good, And those were thick coins. And men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceedingly great. They still don't get it. And they know about God because they're blaspheming him. How can you go against God in the midst of trouble like that? Talk about hardened hearts. Pharaoh was nothing compared to these people. So never pray that God's plan won't be carried out. I think that's one of the reasons that we have to be raptured, besides our protection. But we could stop all this from happening. Just a few people praying to God to stop this. And he doesn't want that. He wants it to take its full course. This timeline has been laid out. This is the timeline that man wants. I drink too fast, and it gives me hiccups. Mild ones. And I talk too much. I'm going into town tomorrow. I got to take the kitty in for some follow-up shots. They got to have all these newborn stuff. And I got him a little bit late. He should have had a couple before. And so I got to play catch up. And I may be a long ways away, but I can get him into town for that. And I'll go visit my son while I'm at it. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And Lord willing, I'll try to get to my storage unit. I've still got stuff to get out of that. I'm trying to continue emptying it out. I would love to be able to completely empty it out by the end of winter, because it's costing me money, and they've raised my money quite a bit. I pay $230 a month, but I moved out of a very large 2-bedroom apartment, and I don't have but a bed in there. Everything else is just all my knick-knack stuff. I've got all my costumes for my costume work. I've got my tools, and I've got camping gear, and now I've got my son stuff in there. So we've got to get it out of there. So pray that can happen. That kind of stuff we can pray for, and you can pray for people individually. As a whole, we can't stop what's written down in the book. You can't stop it. Don't waste your prayers trying to stop it. God will hear it. But I said he'd either say yes, no, or maybe. That'd be a definite no. And you can pray for individuals. Definitely do that. Whenever you've got somebody that you think doesn't deserve hell or the fiery pit, pray for them until they're saved. And pray for them until we're raptured. If they're important to you, pray for them. That's our job. And it takes no money to pray for somebody. Now, sometimes people need money. Sometimes you got to do both. But you can at least pray. Like I tell you all the time, you can like my video. You can subscribe to my channel. That's free. You can donate to this channel if you want, using the thanks button, or you can use the other means down in the description. That's up to you. And I usually don't give people credit for it. I don't want you getting credit on earth. I'd rather have this donation go to your golden heaven. If you take credit for something on earth, God doesn't have to give you credit for it in heaven. That's what he said about the Pharisees praying on the street corners, blowing a trumpet before they did to make sure that everybody could hear them. Jesus said they've had their reward. Do it secretly, without anybody finding out, and there would be a reward in heaven. We all want that. Because we're going to be there eventually. Sooner than later, I hope. Okay. Kitty's getting rambunctious, so I got to go feed him, I think. I don't know when we're going to get out of here. I'm surprised we're still here. But we're in kind of a calm. Calm before the storm. Something, I've said it all year long, something big's going to happen at the end of the year. I just don't know what it is. It's not Trump getting elected. Something big from the enemy, from their camp. They're going to do something. I don't know what it is. Pray for your friends, your neighbors. Pray for Israel, because they're still struggling. And our country is still threatening them. It's going to come back to haunt us here. Whoever's still here is going to pay the price. We always do. Yeah. So Rapture Kitty and I say, let's go. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless.